Kaido Uka is lying there totally broken while his old crew stands over him like shadows, and he's sick to his stomach that he ever trusted them. As one of them brags about purifying evil for the gods, Kaido finally realizes that his loyalty was just a huge mistake. His sadness turns into a cold promise for revenge, and now he's going to hunt down every single one of them: the assassin, the dancer, the merchant, the king, the queen. He's decided to take them out in the most brutal way possible, making sure they feel so much pain that they'll still be haunted by it in their next life. As he's slipping away, a mysterious girl with long, bright red hair shows up and asks him where it all went wrong. And even though his body is totally failing, he manages to let out a rough groan as he looks up at her. Jake the traitor starts mocking him, annoyed that he's still hanging on, but Kaido just lets out a crazy laugh and promises to kill every single one of them with his very last breath. System alerts start blowing up because the tutorial is finally over. And even though the game tries to reset his level and steal his spirit sword, his new holy sword of vengeance blocks it, forcing the system. Instead of dying, he wakes up on a shiny stone floor looking up at a girl with long light hair who smiles and welcomes him as the world's legendary hero. Before she can even finish her greeting, a wild rage from the future takes over his body and he decks her right in the face, sending her stumbling back while the guards freak out. He drops to one knee, gasping for air as his hand shakes from the stinging pain in his knuckles, while the princess looks up from the floor in total shock, asking if his punch was weak since. He stands up and grabs his dark jacket as he realizes these are the same clothes he wore when he first arrived in this world, and he clenches his fist, totally shocked that he's actually alive. He looks around the massive hall and realizes he's back in the capital's summoning chamber. He thinks about using teleportation magic for a second, but knows that's impossible. Just as he's trying to figure things out, the sting in his knuckles and a wave of pure hate snap him back to reality right when a guard rushes him with a sword. The guard closes the gap in a flash and slams the handle of his sword right into the guy's head, making a nasty crunch sound that sends him stumbling while the princess watches in total horror. He stood there totally frozen, wondering how the guard's neck was still in one piece after a strike that should have been fatal, but the guy was just sprawled out on the broken floor, wide awake and gasping for air. The guard who blocked the hit wondered if his buddy used a spirit boost on his neck, but he didn't feel any energy being used at all. Another guard sprints over to help Lauren, screaming his name, while Kaido's head spins because his killer move totally failed to finish the job. He's totally cornered now, and as the princess watches him closely with her two guards, she calls him a brave hero and asks what his big problem is with her. That question made him absolutely snap, and he glared at the princess with total disgust, spitting out her name, Elysia, as he asked if she was really being that stupid. He was so blinded by rage that he left himself wide open. A guard clocked him right in the face and sent him flying to the ground. While spitting out blood, all he could think, he's flat on the ground while she stares down at him with a totally cold look. She gives a little cough and tells him straight up that this isn't betrayal since they were never allied. She looks down at him with a massive, creepy grin, asking if he's really trying to play her. But Kaido finally realizes he was the idiot for ever trusting her because he can literally feel the pure evil coming off her now. Just as it clicks, she slams her foot onto the back of his head with a heavy thud. He can't tell if he's dreaming or seeing his life flash before his eyes. He forces his head up from the ground, his eyes wide and looking absolutely crazy with joy. Even with all the chaos, he's only thinking about one thing. He swore. Fired up and ready to fight, he bolts to his feet and lunges at Elysia, grabbing her hair and yanking her back as she screams in pain. He yanks her close with a wicked grin while she gasps and begs him to stop. But he just asks why he should and tells Elysia he's going to make her suffer for as long as he possibly can. He doesn't say a word, just keeps smashing her head against the stone floor over and over. Both royal guards freak out and charge toward him. Lauren is screaming at the top of her lungs Lauren grabs him from behind, but Kaido doesn't even slow down, wearing a massive bloody grin, while Elysia's screams of pain echo with every single hit. With a bloody grin, he told them that killing them quickly would be a total waste, because he wasn't just looking for a body count, he wanted straight-up revenge. He totally lost it and started tearing through the royal guards with a crazy laugh, leaving a trail of bodies behind him because he wasn't going to stop until they felt the exact same pain. The crazy laughter finally dies down, leaving only the sound of the princess gasping for air on the floor as a massive headache hits him, forcing him to stumble away from the mess while his rage starts to cool off. Princess Alicia is collapsed on the freezing stone floor, gasping for breath and fighting just to stay alive. Sitting there among all the bodies, a soft light starts glowing from his hand. He looks down and sees the jade green crystal blade, a weapon that can actually heal people if you give it mana. He remembered getting killed by that legendary sword, but since he's back from the dead, he stops worrying and decides to check his stats instead. He focuses deep inside, and suddenly this crazy detailed symbol he's never seen before pops up in his eye, leaving him looking totally lost. He grabs his head, feeling super confused, and quickly orders his status screen to pop up. A screen pops up with a profile that makes zero sense, showing 17-year-old Yuki Kaido at level 1 with trash stats, and he can only stare in shock, wondering what. His brain is totally spinning, because none of this makes sense. He knows he's supposed to be level 321 years old, not some 17-year-old kid. He keeps scrolling through the list, but he's stuck with just the basics: spirit, sword, and fist strike. Before he can even process what's happening, he's suddenly launched into the air. But as he starts to fall, he instinctively stomps his foot and creates a solid platform out of thin. The system just unlocked a brand new skill called Airwalk, and even though his proficiency is only 1 out of 10,000, he can now create solid footholds right out of thin air. He was right, the skill just popped up, but looking at his mana sitting at 297, he just laughs because it takes forever to con, costs way too much, and at level 1, he stared at his status screen as a cold realization hit him. He wondered if this was the curse from that legendary immortal-killing sword. If they had a weapon that powerful, they wouldn't even need a hero to take down the Demon Lord. That whole war would have been over in a heartbeat. His face twisted in pure horror as he realized the truth. He was stuck with nothing but weak, white text skills like Jade Green, Crystal Blade, and Fire Spider's Leg. The reality of it all finally hit him, and he started losing his mind when he saw his level was back to 1. It was a total reset, even his spirit sword that took 4 whole. Even though he was totally reeling from the loss, he caught a tiny sound nearby and realized it was the edge of Princess Alicia's dress. He clicked his tongue and whipped around with a fast kick, already knowing she was trying to sneak in a spell. The hit lands perfectly, sending Alicia stumbling back as her face warps into a total monster. Kaido just stands over her with a smirk, asking why she thought he even bothered healing her. He stood over her defeated body and told her straight up that she brought this on herself. He just stood there looking totally wiped out, with his face covered in dirt from all those crazy fights. Out of nowhere, a glowing screen pops up right in front of him with his name, Yuki Kaido, and a notification icon, leaving him totally confused about what he's even looking at. Yuki Kaido stands in a room covered in blood and surrounded by his fallen friends, looking totally stone-faced as he realizes that absolutely nobody can stop him now. Suddenly, a glowing status screen pops up right in front of him, and while he's standing there totally confused, he's actually grinding his boot into the head of a dead blonde woman. He taps the mail icon, and as he reads the message, a wave of relief hits him, and a small, satisfied smile creeps onto his face. The message says that since he's reading this, he's already died once, and now he's been warped right back to the moment he was first summoned. He's standing there in total shock as the message reveals that every single thing he's been through was actually just the tutorial. The message says tons of humans are being sent to other worlds, and even the Earth Goddess has no clue where they'll actually land. Even with a heads up, most people died instantly, so they built this seeing is believing system as the ultimate cheat code. Once he clears the tutorial and resets to the start, he gets all his XP and skills back, only losing a tiny bit based on how much time has passed. The message keeps going and reveals it's actually from his goddess, who warns him that other worlds are way more dangerous than Earth, but she still hopes he can live a happy life there. It finally clicks that staying in the tutorial for way too long reset him back to level 1, and even though it feels like a broken sheet, he decides to just roll with it, and the silence snaps as he starts laughing like a total maniac, not even caring why he got a second shot at life anymore. The laughter dies down and he locks in with a scary look, realizing this is real, and he's got all the time in the world to finally keep his promise and take every single one of them out. He flashes a wicked smirk and clenches his fist, thinking he could end them right here. But just killing them wouldn't be nearly satisfying enough. He knows a quick death is way too good for her. He swears he's not going to let her off easy. There's no way he's letting her get away. He decided that before he finished them off, he was going to make them feel way, way more pain. He needed the princess awake to hear his message. So he used his jade green crystal blade skill, making a bright green light glow from his hand as he healed her beat-up face. The light fades away and her face is totally back to normal, but she's gasping for air and looking at him in pure terror, stuttering that she has a favor to ask as he wonders if she's really about to say. He just laughed, saying she reacted exactly how he expected. Then he leaned down and told her to never lose that fear because it's no fun if she just breaks, leaving her completely. Her shock instantly turned into pure rage as she screamed that he was a total psycho, demanding to know why he was doing this and begging to know what she could have possibly done to deserve it. He told her straight up that even if she forgot, he remembers everything, the scars from trusting them, the sting of being betrayed, and exactly how it felt to be played like a total idiot. His eyes went cold, and a wicked smirk spread across his face as he touched his cheek, remembering everything right before he dropped her full name, Princess Alicia Aurora. He grinned with the green crystal still in his hand and said it was time to get back to his deal, while Alicia just stared at him, looking totally terrified and worn out. He put on a fake sad face and said he'd never force her to do anything, but then he hinted it'd be a total shame if she ignored him after he went through all the trouble of healing her. Suddenly, he shoved her straight to the floor, and Alicia screamed in shock, demanding to know what he was doing as she crashed down. She's thrashing around and yelling for him to quit it as he grabs her leg, but he just stops and stares, realizing her chest is totally in the way, which makes him mutter about how he used to think she was gorgeous, but looking down at her now, he just felt totally empty, and it was honestly super weird that he didn't feel a single thing. Lying on the floor, Alicia looked at him with total disgust, remembering how her heart used to race just from catching him changing his clothes. That memory was the final straw, and she screamed that she finally saw the truth, that people from other worlds are just gross monsters who hurt girls, leaving Kaido totally disgusted and backing away like he'd been punched because he had no clue why she was accusing him. He leans over the princess with a look of pure disgust, asking what she's even yapping about and saying he'd never touch someone so gross. So since she won't listen, he shoves that glowing blade right in her face with a twisted grin, telling her that since she won't listen, he's just going to have to write the message down on her instead. The glowing tip of the blade sizzles against the stone floor before he moves it right over her leg, warning her to stay still so he doesn't mess up his handwriting. She stopped begging and lets out a massive scream the second he presses that glowing hot blade right against her leg. With the smell of burning flesh in the air, he starts humming with a happy blush on his face while Alicia screams and begs him to stop until her voice literally breaks. As she screams for help, she flashes back to a time she was surrounded by bodies making the exact same plea, while Kaido starts laughing like a total psycho, calling her an idiot and bragging that nobody is coming to save her because he's finally using his power to crush everything just like she wanted. He leans in with a cocky smirk, telling her he's only halfway through his letter and that she better not move a muscle. He's finally done, and with the message now burned into Alicia's skin, he takes a big stretch while the princess' leg gives a tiny twitch. He's feeling totally buzzed, almost like he's drunk on his own massive magic power. It's been a long time since he felt a rush quite like this, too. He's totally drained from keeping Alicia alive while carving his message, so he can't even handle his spirit sword anymore and needs to level up ASAP. He looks back at the princess, but with over 500 knights swarming the castle, staying is a total death trap, so he realizes he's got to bail immediately. He's about to head out, but she's still spitting venom, and he can't believe she isn't totally numb after getting wrecked that hard. Alicia grits her teeth and glares with total defiance, shouting that this is just what a princess is supposed to do. She's dead serious when she tells this guy from another world he's getting way too cocky, and she promises that his death is going to be slow and painful. Even though she was in total pain, Alicia's eyes were full of pure rage as she swore to take him out, but not before making him feel every bit of the shame and hurt he put her through. Her fighting back just made him laugh, and he flashed a huge evil grin while mocking her and calling out her name. He finally got it and told her that if she begged for mercy while crying her eyes out, he might actually save her, since even a wild fighter like her is still a useful hero as long as... He kept mocking her, surprised she still had the energy to talk so big, and then he offered her a deal to keep pretending she was a legendary hero in front of the whole city. She wasn't giving up yet, and through gritted teeth, she told him his deal still wasn't good enough. Her saying no sent him over the edge. Suddenly, his head was filled with nothing but dark thoughts of hurting and breaking them. He grabbed his head, realizing that simple revenge just wasn't going. Once the rage finally cooled down, he just felt totally exhausted. He looked down at Elysia's beaten body and let out a heavy sigh. He was honestly shocked he fell for such an obvious trap. Looking totally bored, he tells the tied-up princess that no knights are coming to save her because he knows all about the secret barriers they used to hide the hero summoning, and when she looks shocked, he just casually reminds her that he wasn't lying about what he knows. She's demanding to know where he got his info, but he just stands up and grabs a candlestick, telling her he's heard this before and he's in no rush this time. That candlestick wasn't for light at all. It was actually a secret lever, and one quick pull sent a massive thud echoing through the room. The floor suddenly rumbles open to reveal a dark secret tunnel, and while Elysia is totally shocked and asking how he knew it was there, he just coolly says he's been this way. He's at the bottom of the stairs in his cloak when he suddenly stops and smacks his head, realizing he totally forgot to stop the victims from calling for backup. And right then, a guard spots him from the top and charges straight down. The fight was over in a flash, and as the guard lay there bleeding, Kaido stood over him with a flaming spider leg blade, wondering if he had enough magic left to just crush the guy's throat for being so reckless. He's crouching over the guard with his sword still burning, acting like the kill was nothing, and just mumbles, "Okay, next," as he heads for his next target. He tracked down Princess Elysia, shoved her to the ground, and told her she was the final target on his list. Then he spotted her royal Eucarino necklace and told her he was taking... He crouched down to look her in the eye and acted super chill, telling her he never expected to see her again and giving her a chance to ask him anything. Pinned to the dirt and barely able to speak, Elysia had one simple question. She just wanted to know his name. Her question totally annoyed him, but also made him laugh, so he scoffed and asked if she was for real wanting his name right now, especially since he already wrote all about himself in that letter he left. He leaned in with a cocky smirk and gave her another choice, telling her she could just call him the Second Chance Avenger. Once his decoration was finished, he turned and walked off, his footsteps echoing through the empty hallway. He barely walked a few steps before stopping dead, his face turning bright red as all that confidence turned into total embarrassment. He's hiding out in a rocky alleyway, holding his head because he's totally cringing at himself. That big, flashy speech he just made is already starting to feel like a huge mistake. Now that he's got a second chance, our hero is hunting for serious payback, trekking through the bright forest and stepping out of the dark into the light. He stretches his arms out with a huge grin, finally realizing that this crazy new life is actually real. Standing in a clearing overlooking the town, he throws his arms wide and screams to the sky that he's finally a free man. As he keeps moving, he thinks back to his days as a fugitive 3 months ago and realizes how amazing it feels just to stand in the sun, knowing he's got exactly one day before Elysia and her crew start digging into his past. His face turns serious as he realizes he's still way too weak and unprepared to actually pull off his revenge right now. Meanwhile, the nearby town is buzzing with life, and we see a light-haired guy promising his blonde friend that his recommendation is fresh and totally worth it. He's walking through these streets, watching the crowd, but they aren't really his main focus. Even though these people are technically his enemies, who believe every lie the kingdom and church tell them, he doesn't feel like hurting them at all. He just hopes they can be happy. He pushed through the gross, smelly slums exactly like he expected, ignoring the dead stares from the locals while he looked for his target. Suddenly, a gang of thugs jumps out and blocks his path. One guy in a headband shouts at him for wearing such a weird outfit, while a bald guy with a goatee sneers at it. He just stood there looking bored while they tried to act tough, and his silence was driving them crazy. One guy yelled to see if he was deaf, while another dude in a cap charged straight at him. The thug's charge gets shut down with a nasty crack, and in a flash, he's eating dirt with Kaido's foot pinned right on his back. With the guy pinned under him, Kaido's mind was already somewhere else. He calmly pulled up his status screen to see if his plan actually worked. Checking his stats, he noticed confusion turned to pure terror the second Kaido started his move, and with just a flick of his fingers, one guy started screaming in total pain and embarrassment while Kaido watched coldly, wishing these guys were. With the guys rolling around in pain on the floor, Kaido finally explained why he was being so brutal. As one dude sat there with a sword stuck in his leg, Kaido looked totally satisfied with. This hooded guy is gasping for breath as he races across the rooftops of Islam, letting his pursuer lead him straight to the hideout of that four-eyes bastard. He drops into a cramped alley, knowing he's in deep trouble as he frantically scrambles to get away. He's sprinting for his life, but hits a total dead end at a massive armored door guarded by two creepy gargoyles. And just as he stops to catch his breath, one of the statues actually speaks up and demands a password. Drenched in sweat and gasping for air, the guy blurts out the password, "Trash heaps, spare key," and the gargoyle finally lets him through. He bursts into the room screaming for the boss, but Jake is just chilling on the couch asking what the rush is. So Jack, the guy in the hood, panics and asks if A calm voice from the next office asks who's there. Jack says his name, and his boss tells him to head inside. Jack walks into the office to find his boss totally buried in paperwork. And when the man asks if it's okay that he can't look up, Jack stands at attention and says he just sits there, totally unbothered, while Jack stumbles over his words about the report. And even though the hooded guy tries to bail, his boss tells him to sit back down because he knows this is going to be a long one. He looks up from his papers with a smug grin and points out that Jack clearly got sloppy. The hooded guy just stares back, sweating like crazy because he's totally confused by the comment. Before you can even blink, that heavy office door gets kicked straight off its hinges and comes crashing into the room. Kato stands in the wrecked doorway, casually holding a monster's head like it's nothing. He says hi and points out how the door was totally soundproofed, explaining he had to kick it down because his hands were full with some. This monocle-wearing guy stays totally chill, calling himself Juff Fane Gull, and admitting he's basically the boss of the slums before just telling Jack to leave. Jack scrambles away, yelling a quick thanks to Kato for the lead, while Jeff Fane's face goes stone cold as he glares at the intruder and asks why he didn't just do what he was told. He just stared Kaido down while Kaido flashed a fake smile and asked what he wanted, but the guy just said he needed some help while his hand gripped a spiked metal bracelet. And then he showed off the bracelet and told Jeff Fane Gull to name his best price. And the slum manager was so hyped he wanted to check it out before making a deal. Jeff Fane looked closely at the strange object when a soft rattling sound filled the quiet room. Kaido took a second to think about their whole situation. He knew this guy had nothing to do with his. Jeff Fane took one look and realized this thing was the real deal, seeing that every magic stone was packed with top-tier power that made the whole piece glow. He was totally blown away and offered 30 gold coins for the masterpiece, but he warned Kaido not to pull any stunts while things were this intense. He kept insisting Kaido would make a ton of money and told him to stop making this deal such a total headache. Kato's face turned stone cold as he gave Jeff Fane a terrifying warning. If Jeff kept pushing his luck, Kato was straight up going to kill him. He stares at the slum manager, realizing that getting any info on this guy is going to cost him a fortune. But Jeff Fane Gull just flashes a grin and says sorry for being a jerk earlier. The manager offers 350 gold coins, paying some now and the rest tomorrow, while letting Kaido keep the necklace. And when Kaido asks if he's worried about him just running away with the cash, Jeff says that kind of money is basically pocket change to him. He grins and says if Kaido runs away, it just means he was wrong about him. Then he holds out a bag of coins that Kaido happily snatches up. Instead of keeping the cash, he just flicks a single coin back at the manager, who's left looking totally confused. Kato flashes a creepy grin and asks what the bounty on his head is, mocking the manager for throwing away his famous skills for a measly 50 gold coins. He just turns his back and waves him off, announcing that the deal is officially over. As Kaido walks away, Jeff Fane Gull watches him go with a low, creepy laugh. He looks down. Back at his place, Kaido flops onto his bed, totally wiped out. But when he pulls up his status screen, He's losing his mind, wondering how he's still stuck at level 1. He's stuck in his room face-palming at the screen, desperately begging the Earth Goddess for mercy as he remembers her warning about losing points for being slow, when suddenly it hits him and his eyes go wide with pure panic. He checks his status screen and sees a total nightmare, negative 20,000 experience points. He's freaking out, wondering how he even got that far behind. Since his spirit sword, he remembers the brutal rules to unlock his revenge power. First, he had to face over 10 people he used to trust and swear to get even. Then he had to take a massive beating from them. He puts the XP grind on the back burner and focuses on what really matters, getting ready to leave town. Now all he has to do is pack his gear, and looking at his shopping, he spots a magic hook blade and a cheap mana potion, and the blade can actually rewrite an item's magic if you pump mana into it. While his target, a simple beaded necklace, he sighs while staring at the necklace on his desk, totally bummed he won't see the princess's face when she gets it, and he's just hoping that annoying nerd he's stuck with can at least snap a photo for him. Somewhere else, a creepy guy in the shadows starts laughing, and even though he isn't sure how the king and queen will handle this, he's dying to find out. He hummed a little tune in his room at the inn, finally finishing up the super detailed work on that necklace. He was totally stoked with what he'd done, humming a happy tune while he checked out his work. He was so hyped that he jumped out of his chair and yelled that he was finally done. But then someone in the next room screamed at him to shut up. He totally froze, and the neighbor wouldn't stop yelling, calling him a total loser and asking if he was deaf, while Kaido just knelt there, dying of shame for his stupid mistake. Once the chaos finally died down, he slumped onto his bed, feeling the hype of his win turn into pure exhaustion as he realized he really needed to crash. He peeked out his door and saw something totally crazy. 2 stone gargoyles were standing guard in front of a massive door down the hall. Then it suddenly hit him. He threw on his clothes and got his head in the game. He walked up to the guards but stopped short, totally blanking on the password. He was pretty annoyed when he realized He walks up to the door where a tiny horned gargoyle is standing guard, but it just lets him right in like it was waiting for him, making Kaido realize someone definitely tipped them off about his arrival. He walks right in and totally catches 3 guys off guard, making them jump to their feet and get ready for a fight. He casually walks down the steps, telling the nervous guards he won't hurt them if they stay back, while a fancy-looking guy drops the promised 340 gold on them. The guy hands over the necklace and thanks him, and when Kaido asks if he wants to count the gold, he says he knows a big shot like him wouldn't pull any cheap tricks. He grabs the necklace, looking totally stunned as he checks out the crazy detail on the chain and that diamond pendant. Kaido feels bad for making the item harder to sell, so he tosses in 20 extra gold coins as long as he helps with one more quick favor. The guy leans forward and brushes off the extra gold because he's hooked on something else. He demands to know how Kaido pulled off such a massive upgrade in just one night. Kaido calls. The secret mission was actually super simple. Kaido just wanted another spy monkey exactly like the one from yesterday so he could watch every single thing going down inside the castle. The monocle guy says he's taking a massive risk and wants 80 gold coins, but Kaido tells him to prove his skills and only offers 30. He laughed at the tiny offer, saying the risk was way too high and he needed at least 70. But Kaido fired back that it was an easy job he'd done before on nobles. He warned them that hunting royalty is way more dangerous than messing with nobles. And as the sky cleared outside, he dropped his final price, 60 gold coins. He's not going any. Once the price was set, he pulled out a tiny vial called a prying ass receiver, laughed that Kaido shouldn't expect any praise, and ended the deal while Kaido just stood there looking. The guy was still dying to know the truth, so he faked being sad and asked how Kaido pulled that item out so fast, but Kaido just shut him down, saying it's a... Kaido turned to leave, muttering insults at the guy under his breath. He walked off, totally sure that Four Eyes would actually keep his end of the bargain. He figured that He let out a dark laugh with a massive, creepy grin on his face, just hoping his plan would go off without a hitch. Pumped up by the thought, he threw his arms wide in a trashy alley and yelled that living for revenge felt incredible. He stopped his victory walk and looked around, spotting a building with a beat-up, cracked door. He knew it the second he saw it. This was the He pushes the door open as a bell jingles, and the guy behind the counter looks up to give him a quick welcome. This slave trader asks if he's looking to buy, and Kaido's just glad they're the only ones in the shop. When the guy asks about his budget, Kaido says, the trader didn't think Kaido had the cash, so Kaido got annoyed and flashed a massive bag of coins to shut him up. The guy's face totally changed from doubt. He followed the trader down a creepy hallway lined with iron cages. You could hear people crying out in pain everywhere, but Kaido didn't even blink. This was all exactly what he planned. He spotted a prisoner looking totally crushed on the floor, and Kaido figured he could use a slave to help him level up in secret, planning to just pay them and set them free when he was finished. The trader saw Kaido looking and started hyping up the strongest slaves, and Kaido totally agreed since he just needed someone who could survive on their own for this business deal. He stopped looking at the cells nearby and spotted a single person standing all alone at the very end of the dark hallway. He finds a girl chained to the wall and kneeling on the freezing stone floor with a heavy iron ball on her ankle. But even though she's covered in blood and dirt, her one visible eyes. Yuki points at a cage to ask who's inside, but the trader tells him to ignore the bunny girl because she's way too wild and aggressive for the noble who ordered her. Kaido makes it clear he's taking her, and even though the trader is shocked he'd pick a beast man, Kaido doesn't care and just wants to get the master crest. The registration kicks off, and the trader explains that this master crest lets you control a slave by blasting them with pain whenever you pump mana into it. Kaido signs the contract in a glowing mark. With the mark now on his hand, Kaido walks up to the cell where a girl is hanging by her wrists, looking totally wiped out, and he swings the heavy door open with a loud. She steps into the dark room to find the woman collapsed on the floor, covered in bruises and chained to a heavy iron ball. And as she gasps for air, Kaido kneels down and softly touches her hair. She pulls her hair back to show her face, looking up at him with a single tear in her eye as he realizes her eyes are just as gorgeous as he always thought. She triggers the mark on his hand, sending a magical shock through the chains that makes the Beastman girl scream in pain as she calls him a filthy human and yells that he's just as bad as the rest. The pain finally lets up, but she's left shaking and gasping for air, totally crushed by that insane power. He keeps a totally straight face while telling her to play nice, but then he stares her down and drops a massive question. Who is it that she wants to kill? Daniel leans in close and asks her straight up who exactly she's planning to get revenge on. Deep in a snowy forest, two girls are trekking through the frozen trees, and the short-haired one feels bad telling Menarishan they couldn't find a single thing to eat. Henry tells her friend it's okay since she's the one who wanted to celebrate Carol's birthday here, but her face drops when she realizes they've wandered way deeper into the woods than they planned. Out of nowhere, her friend gasps and points at something up ahead, making a freaked-out Minaris agree they should just head back since they haven't found anything anyway. She gasped in terror, but that fear turned into pure relief the second she spotted a fruit tree up ahead. She started cheering, so hyped that their long search actually worked out. But her partner, she spotted a creepy gray creature hunched over and stuffing its face with fruit, and she realized it was a total goblin. Lucia was totally terrified and screamed her friend's name. But Minories realized it was a super smart and brutal ice goblin, so she told Lucia to keep it together and back away slowly. But she was totally wrong to hope, because the goblin slowly turned around with a creepy, evil grin and licked its lips. It finally found them. In a split second, the monster lunged forward. Lucia tripped and fell into the snow, watching in total terror as it flew right at her. She let out a massive scream from the bottom of. Flashback to when Menaresi was just a little kid with her rabbit ears out, listening to her mom explain that she'd have to learn magic to hide them one day. But she had to break her promise right then and there, so Minaris charged forward with a shout and landed a massive kick that sent the goblin flying into a tree, saving Lucia She watched that wrecked ice goblin scramble into the deep woods and finally let out a huge sigh of relief. She didn't even have a second to relax before she bolted over to Lucia, frantically checking if she was hurt, while the poor girl just stared up from the ground and whispered her name. Minarai saw where she was looking and immediately grabbed her head, realizing her long rabbit ears were totally out in the open, and she started panicking and stuttering because she had no clue how to explain this to Lucia. She hung her head and apologized for the delay, desperately begging Lucia to keep her true identity a total secret from everyone. Lucia looked up and agreed right away, making Manhwa breathe a huge sigh of relief. And once she saw Lucia could actually stand, the scary forest fight was forgotten as they focused on a peaceful village instead. In a flashback, Manhwa's mom sits by her bed and tells her she was right to save her friend, but Manhwa just looks down and asks if she totally messed up. The peace is totally ruined when her mom suddenly screams for her to wake up and get over there, snapping Manhwa right out of her daydream. The flashback keeps going, and she's suddenly kneeling in the middle of the village square with everyone staring her down. Her mom is right there looking just as lost, and Manhwa starts panicking that she's hit with pure dread when a scary old man with an eye patch and a long beard steps up and asks if she and her mom are actually bunny beastmen. And in that moment, her mom panics, and these long white rabbit ears suddenly pop out of her head. Manhwa screams for her, but the ears just glow and disappear into thin air. The crowd starts whispering as they realize what they just saw. Manhwa catches her mom, looking back at her and her little sister Maurice while they're all huddled together. One huge question is stuck in them. The elder stares them down with his one eye, and his look is so cold it makes Manhwa shake with pure terror. One line out. The user provided one block of text. I will provide one block of text. Final check on tone. Super serious, telling the truth. Punch to the... She spots Lucia being held by this guy named Carol, and the betrayal is just brutal. Manhwa screams, "Why? You promised me!" But Carol just glares at her with... Carol gets right in her face and won't listen to a word she says, calling her a total fake. He claims Lucia told him everything, that Manhwa used her scary beastman powers. The village elder slams her mom to the dirt, screaming that she's just a filthy beast, while Manhwa cries out in total shock. Lucia just stands there with a nasty smirk, mocking them for being gross animal people who tricked everyone this whole time. Harold joins the angry mob, screaming for the beastmen to get out of their village, while Manhwa's little sister Maurice is on the ground crying in pain. And this massive betrayal, Morris is crying her eyes out and asking why, but then the truth hits her. She's been totally betrayed, and her mom is frantically trying to shut her up. Just suddenly a bunch of villagers show up looking totally stunned and nervous. And get this, Manhwa's own dad is right there with them. He sees his family surrounded on the ground, and as Maurice screams his name through her tears, his face twists in total shock before he lets out a massive, desperate shout of denial. He goes from being in denial to pure rage. He snaps at Maurice, screaming that he doesn't know him and wants nothing to do with him. Then he starts roaring at his own daughter. Her whole world just went totally numb. Right after she was sold, little Manhwa realized she couldn't see, hear, or even feel a single thing. This slave trader checked them out, and basically, a brutal kick sends her mom crashing to the dirt, and the trader just walks away like it's nothing. Manhwa screams her lungs out, begging her mom to wake up, while he stomped back in totally annoyed, wondering if he'd already broken her. He started cursing his luck, whining that her mom was selfish for dying and making him lose all that cash on. Her world was totally trashed, and she wondered why she was even born into this nightmare until a dark feeling took over, making her want to wreck everything and hate everyone. The slave trader snaps at her for zoning out, but his voice is totally drowned out by the violent thoughts screaming in her head. She just wants to kill, crush, and burn everything to the ground. She stood her ground and got whipped for it, while that traitor screamed in her face, asking if she knew the cost of resisting and telling her that a lowly animal should never defy a human, but she knew her hate was way too deep to ever forgive him. But then the flashback snapped away, and she was back in reality with Yuki Kaido gripping her chin. And even though she figured he was just deep in the pits of famine hell, Kato crouches in front of a bunny-eared girl with her hands tied up and asks her straight up who she wants to get revenge on. Spons is totally losing it and denying everything with pure rage in her eyes, while Kaido just smirks and asks if killing them is her only goal. She completely snaps and starts screaming that just killing them isn't enough, because she wants to torture them and tear them apart piece by piece. Hearing her dark side come out, Kaido just... Rin tells her they're both looking at things the wrong way and begs her to snap out of it so she can join him in his hunt for revenge, listing off everyone she has to destroy. While he's talking, this insane weapon called the Holy Sword of Vengeance just pops into his hand, And he explains that it'll turn them into partners who can never quit their revenge, even forcing her to hate his enemies as much as he does. He totally gets her and explains this contract isn't just some empty promise. It's a real bond that'll stop them from ever hurting each other. So he tells her to trust him as he drops his hand onto a swirling dark orb to kick off the pact. She keeps grinning and tells him he'd love having her as a partner because it'll make his revenge way more fun. He says that torturing and breaking people is a ton of... She tells Kaido she's got no time for basic killers and asks if he's actually special. Then after a quiet second, she just starts losing it. She realizes that as she's made her choice and there's no turning back because her thirst for revenge is burning way too hot for her to ever forgive or forget the miserable life she was forced to live. Seeing she's for real, he tells her to take the sword, and as she grabs it, dark energy swirls around her arm like a ribbon before he introduces himself as Ukai Kaido. And they officially seal the deal, and Kaido smirks as he calls Minori's his little partner, while she looks at him with total devotion and calls him her master. They've teamed up for pure revenge, and Minori wastes zero time putting that sword to work. She tears through her first targets like it's nothing, letting their blood spray all over the... Standing in the wreckage, Minori looks at Kaido and finally realizes that his crazy thirst for revenge is just like hers. He listens to her and looks over at a terrified guy shaking in a cage, finally realizing how their bond actually works. This is how they share their thirst for payback. And even though he knows, he watches the system message confirm the deal, making Minori his official Avenger servant, and the bunny girl is totally freaking out with joy because she realizes this sword gives her the power to do. Minori gets serious fast and asks Kaido what the plan is, joking that he should just sit back and let her handle everything. She calls him a meanie since he knows she's thirsty for revenge. Then she declares she's hunting down that escaped traitor right now, and Kaido gives her the green light to go get ready. You can really see how twisted this traitor is by the cage nearby, where a bunch of prisoners are huddled together looking totally broken. Kaido's looking over Minori's stats and realizes she's a beast-man powerhouse with crazy skills like illusion magic and pain resistance. But while she's whipping up some food, she finishes her meal with a big grin, but suddenly she gets super dizzy and starts to stumble. She's totally confused, but Kaido explains she burned through way too much mana and tells her to finally drink that MP potion he gave. She says she's not even hungry, but Kaido is totally over her acting like a crazy drunk. So he shuts her up and forces that potion right down her throat. The potion finally kicks in and she lets out a sigh, giving her master a cheeky look and calling him mean now that she's got her energy back. But even as she brings out a massive feast, he watched Minori step forward with her bare feet on the freezing floor, knowing the big moment was finally here. She set down a massive feast for the prisoners and told the main target to stop being shy and dig in since she cooked it all herself. But when she saw them hesitate, she just gave a creepy smile. A dark, creepy glow wrapped around her as she triggered her poison demon flames, whispering for them to trick her enemies and swallow them whole. It worked instantly, and the guy totally lost it, screaming in pure terror and begging for her to stop while Minori explained to Kaido that she was doing this because the man had looked at her. His begging turned into straight-up animal screams as he completely lost his mind, obsessed with nothing but food. He starts shoveling the food into his mouth like a beast, and Minori finds it hilarious that her poison is working way better than she expected. Since getting the dose right is such a hassle, while she's talking, this dark spell hits the rest of the prisoners, turning them into shadows with starving eyes as they start crawling forward and groaning for food. They're scrambling all over the floor, groaning and grabbing at a feast that isn't even real. This insane magical hunger is forcing them to stuff their faces with fake food until they don't. Her face twisted into a nasty grin as she soaked up their pain, mocking them to look even more pathetic before leaning in to whisper that this guy was an even bigger loser than her own mother. While she's talking, her hand turns into a massive claw, and her eyes look totally evil. And as she wishes for him to lose it, the guy screams his head off while his arm starts swelling. Inside the cell, starving prisoners are crawling on the floor and trashing food like animals, while a blonde guy groans as a massive green hand forces his jaw open to shove more down his throat as a horned woman smiles. She gets this huge, twisted grin while looking at how pathetic they've become, asking them how it feels to be even lower than the beastmen they used to hate, and demanding they describe exactly how miserable they are. The prisoners are so hooked on the food they won't even talk. Suddenly, their bodies start twitching like crazy. They grab their throats and stomachs, screaming in total agony, but they literally can. The horned lady giggles, explaining that the more they eat, the faster they'll turn into goblins, a fate she thinks is perfect for them. Right as she says it, one of the guys finally finishes turning into a gross green goblin, and he starts clawing at his own skin and groaning while he keeps stuffing his face with food. She looks down at the new goblin with a cold smile and drops a total bombshell. That food is actually a deadly poison if you eat too much. And as they keep stuffing their faces, she asks how it feels to be killed by the very meal they couldn't resist. She claps her hands and acts totally shocked at how fast he transformed, saying she's glad they liked her food, but then she starts mocking them, asking if they can even talk like normal people anymore, or if they're just stuck making weird goblin noises. She loses it and starts laughing like a total maniac, screaming that she wants them to die looking like the pathetic losers they've always hated. This is payback for what they did to her mom. She laughs like a total psycho, while the new goblins twitch all over the ground, leaning in close to enjoy every second of their pain. Watching the carnage from behind his bars, Kato lets out a dark laugh because Minori's is doing a total masterpiece. She's making them starve before feeding them a crazy mix of poisons that turn them into monsters and kill them at the same time, proving he definitely picked the right girl for the job. As the last beast finally goes down, she looks totally at peace, clasping her hands and whispering that she finally got revenge for her mom. She looks at Kaido with total respect, calling him master and thanking him for letting her get that sweet revenge, but he just tells her it's time to bounce. He tells her not to sweat it, reminding her that they aren't just friends, they're partners bound together by their shared hunger for revenge. She looks him right in the eye with total confidence, admitting he has a point, but she reminds him that he's the master who finally gave her the shot at getting revenge for her mom. She remembered when she was filled with pure rage and just waiting to die, but after telling her master everything, she finally realized that this thirst for revenge was hers and hers alone. After it all finally clicked, she looked at him with total loyalty and offered him her entire life, her heart, her soul, everything, except for her burning thirst for revenge, which she begged him to take over and make his own. He backed off, totally caught off guard by how intense she was being, and told her to just chill since he wasn't interested. He figured her beastman instincts were just going crazy because his face went totally serious as he told them their revenge was just getting started. Her face lit up with a totally crazy grin when he spoke. She promised to go even harder next time, with her head spinning with wild ideas. But he was low-key terrified, wondering. A bit later, they head down a sketchy alleyway while a couple of locals just stare at them as they pass. While they're walking, he asks if she can hide her ears and tail, and she tells him she finally has enough magic back to make them disappear with an illusion. She watched as Menorezi looked totally chill, running a hand through her hair while a magical glow made her long rabbit ears disappear into the light. She pulled off the spell without saying a single word, and when Menorezi asked if her ears were finally hidden, he told her the magic looked perfect. He still wasn't satisfied, so he suddenly reached out and grabbed her head, making Minori scream because she was totally caught off guard. He reached for the spot where her ears used to be, and as his fingers sank into her hair, he was totally blown away by how fluffy it felt, just like a real rabbit. He kept messing with her hair until she was totally mortified, and with a bright red face, she begged him to stop doing that right in front of everyone. Ripley finally snaps him out of his trance, and he yanks his hand back in a panic, apologizing like crazy and saying he just got carried away. But even though Menorez is blushing like a tomato, she's totally cool with it. Trying to shake off the awkwardness, he cleared his throat and finally brought up their next move, realizing he'd totally forgotten to tell her the plan. He turned to Menorezi with a super serious look and told her they were leaving town this very second, leaving her totally stunned and clutching her shirt in disbelief. The escape from the capital is happening right now, and Menorez is totally caught off guard in her basic tunic, wondering why they're rushing to leave today. Tato explains that he's still way too weak and they've got zero time to waste, so they're hitting the road today. He knows she saw his massive hit list through their shared revenge link, but he asks her exactly how much of his memory she actually saw. Her eyes go wide as the truth hits her, and she asks if he's a ghost or some kind of world-class villain since she saw his whole life right up to the moment he died. But Kaido tells her to hold that thought because they need to grab some gear and get out of town ASAP, and Menarese totally agrees. She gives a smirk, totally locked in now, and tells him she doesn't care who they're hunting because even though she was shocked at first, she's all in to help him turn their enemies' lives into a total nightmare. He's totally shocked she's so cool with him targeting the royal family, and since he's not leaving until tonight anyway, they really don't need to rush. He chuckles and says sorry for asking such a huge favor, and even though Minarese gets a bit flustered, she quickly beams and tells him she's just hyped he chose her to be his partner in crime. Kato sees she's finally fired up and sober, so he lays out the plan. First, they need to find some low-key clothes, then grab food, weapons, and a warm coat for the road. He finished the escape plan, but Menarese pointed at the massive gate and asked how they'd even get out, since it's locked tight at night. He told her to chill out because they weren't even using the main gate. Instead, he pointed at the town wall and said they were going through a hole. He found a weak spot that, later on as they walk through town, Menarese holds her new dress tight and nervously asks if she should really have something this fancy, but he just tells her it was super cheap and not to. He kept it real and told her she was beautiful, but warned that looking like a slave would just make her a target for nasty thugs and stuck-up nobles. That direct compliment hit her way harder than she expected, making her face turn bright red as her eyes went wide in total shock. He saw her totally glitching out and asked what was wrong, but Menarese tried to play it cool by saying she was just dizzy from leveling up after the goblin fight, which only made him more worried. She just brushed him off with a big smile, swearing she could walk just fine and would be 100% by tomorrow. But he noticed her face was bright red and she was still acting. He hands Menarese a tiny bottle and tells her to drink up, explaining that this potion is the perfect fix for her dizziness. She starts stressing because the potion is way too pricey, but he loses his cool, grabs her shoulder, and tells her to just drink it and stop being difficult. So she says sorry in Gula. He asks if she knows how to use a weapon since her Beastman magic is perfect for up-close fights, but Menarese looks away and shyly admits she only learned by swinging swords for adventurers passing through her village. She says sorry for being weak, but he tells her it's totally fine since he didn't pick her for her power. He just needs a partner in crime. And now that she's chilled out, they're heading to a weapon shop because he's already got his spirit sword ready to go. They head through the streets and find a weapon shop, but as they walk up, a young guy tells them they're closing while an old man inside shouts at him to just kick them out. Kaido steps up and promises it'll be fast since he knows exactly what he's looking for. And even though the grumpy shopkeeper just wants to close up, Kaido calmly asks for 2 sets of starter armor, and just as the guy turns to grab the gear, Kaido drops one last huge order, 10 basic swords, each with its own sheath. He's waiting at the counter while the shopkeeper's son says the order is ready, but the guy looks totally stressed and asks for a second to get everything finished. This young shopkeeper is totally failing at math, and his dad absolutely loses it, smacking him on the head and screaming about how slow he is. The dad demands he finish the sale so they can. We flash back to a chill moment with Princess Elysia, where she asks if he was talking about the weapon shop owner and his son, and he says, yeah, they definitely look like they've got some dwarf blood in them. A tiny smirk creeps onto her face as she realizes exactly what he's getting at. Her smile turns into a look of total disgust as she says it's gross that monsters are pretending to be human in her kingdom, while Kaido grabs his head as he remembers what she said about those dwarf families. She turns to him with a massive, creepy smile, even with blood splattered all over the walls behind her. She thanks the hero, explaining that he helped her find all the trash hiding in. Kaido shakes off those dark thoughts and ignores the shopkeeper's kid, turning to ask Menarese if she can put the armor on herself, then offering to help when she looks totally lost. He's being super careful while buckling up Minarese's new armor, but he's so flustered he lets out a tiny nervous sound. The shopkeeper's dad sees everything and gives Kaido a massive thumbs up, calling him a total legend. But a super embarrassed Kaido just snaps and tells the pervy old man to shut up. After his big freakout, he says sorry to Menarese for the drama, and then the shopkeeper's dad stops him to give some advice as his own way of making things right. The old man drops a super cryptic warning, telling Kaido to buy up all the antidote he can before the price hits the roof. Kaido is totally lost on why, but he agrees. Just as he's about to head out, Kaido gets real serious and whispers an apology for everything that went down in the first cycle. The shopkeeper's dad is totally confused, and once they step outside, Minori's offers to carry the heavy gear. But Kaido turns her down because he doesn't want anyone figuring out she's a slave. He reminds her as they walk, he gets this super shady smirk while thinking about the slums on the edge of town, knowing those desperate people would totally backstab anyone just to make a quick buck. He brings Minori's right to the bottom of the town wall and shouts that they've finally made it. She looks around totally lost and asks him where that hole he mentioned is supposed to be. He starts explaining that while every town wall can heal itself and stay super strong, the ones here in the capital are even crazier because they can absorb massive hits and totally shrug off magic damage. He explains that all this magic comes from a starlight stone that sucks mana right out of the air. And if you pull it out, the wall turns back into plain old rock, so he drops to one knee and presses his gloved hand against the surface. The second his hand touches the stone, it cracks open to reveal a disgusting swarm of pale, maggot-like creatures squirming inside. Minori's flinches and asks if these things are seriously eating the walls and starlight stones, and he confirms they're all eaters that use gross slime to melt mana rocks so they can multiply and leave nothing behind but dust. He explains that since those monsters are munching on the starlight stone, the wall is super weak and easy to break through. And apparently these things are a brand new species that doesn't even have a name yet. Menori's is totally grossed out by that wriggling pile and has to look away, while a sweating Kaido realizes this whole thing might have been a bit too much for her to handle. He's totally freaked out when Minori's gets this creepy look on her face and asks if those monsters can melt people too, saying it would be a blast to toss someone into a pit of them just to watch them suffer. As they're crouching by the hole in the wall, her ideas get even more twisted. She thinks just dumping maggots on someone is way too boring, so she suggests letting the skin rot slowly so the victim can actually feel the bugs eating them from the inside out. She flashes a creepy grin and gives them another choice, digging the maggots out of their body just to show them how many were actually living inside. Kaido lets her try to act cool before explaining that these monsters can't eat meat, but since they feed on mana, he can totally breed them inside a living, insane body. They burst through the gap and find themselves in a freezing, snowy field outside the wall, and as Kaido turns back to the opening, Minori's offers to help, but he tells her he's going to seal the hole with someone else first. He starts boarding up the hole with wooden planks, and when Minori's asks if he can just use an illusion to hide it, he explains the spell would only last about a day if he sets the plank down and tells Menori's it'll work, because the people here are way too busy surviving to care about some tiny detail. He knelt by the pile of coins and spotted some creepy white grubs mixed in, figuring they might actually be useful. He carefully popped one into a tiny vial for later, while Menori's just stood behind him watching with a totally blank look on her face. After hiding the entrance, he told his partner they were heading deeper into the woods to find an old hunter's cabin, and Minori's was super hyped to follow his lead. While trekking through the woods, Kaido tells Menori's she's totally wiped from using her powers and says they need to regroup at the shed just up the trail. He keeps telling her that fighting with only half her stats is straight up stupid, especially since she's so pretty, and he secretly thinks her good looks are a total cheat code for winning battles or making deals. She turns bright red and tells him that flirting is pointless, reminding him that since she's his slave, she has to do whatever he says anyway. Grace turns bright red as she thinks about what he said, but then she looks totally lost and asks him what a sleazebag even is, making Kaido freak out that he said it out loud before awkwardly explaining it just means a really gross guy. He looks up at the moon, totally frustrated, wondering how he's even supposed to explain what sleazy means to her. They finally make it to the spot, and he announces their arrival as he swings open the creaky door of a tiny wooden cabin, finding a dusty mess of cobwebs and old beds that they'll definitely need to clean first. The place is finally looking way better, and as they stand there with their brooms, Kaido points out how much cleaner it is, and Menori's totally agrees. She hands Menori's a drink and tells her to crash on the bed, and even though Menori's is totally caught off guard, she eventually gives in while he promises she's safe and needs to catch some Z's. Before she crashed, he gave her one last job to have food ready the second she woke up, And after she agreed, the next morning kicked off with the sound of a goblin screaming its head off. He stands in a forest clearing, surrounded by the monsters he just crushed, wipes the sweat off his face, and decides he's finally done for the day. He heads back to the shed and sits across from Inarice, telling her they need to get their revenge goals straight because the connection they felt before was just a tiny piece of the real story. He wants the full story and asks her to spill everything, so Minarez gets a serious look as she prepares to tell him about her past. He grips the table with white knuckles, and once she's done talking, he's literally speechless because he's so sad for her and absolutely fuming at the people who did this. He finally realized that for the person she'd become, feeling sorry for her was basically just another way of making fun of her. He stood right by her side, and now they were totally locked in. Her hunt for revenge was officially his mission too. He was totally locked in now and completely done feeling sorry for himself. He looked right at Menarece and told her it was finally his turn to spill everything about his past. He started by spilling the tea on where he actually came from. He's actually a hero who got summoned from a whole different world. The second he opened his eyes, he was standing. Minarece was totally clueless about the whole otherworld thing, and even though she felt Kaido's rage through their bond, she still didn't get the full picture. So he knew. He explained it all again until she finally got it, and then she looked up and called him master. Menarece looked him right in the eye and promised they'd give it their all together, and Kaido just gave a serious nod to show he was totally down. He ripped through the forest so fast he was basically just a dark blur against the trees. He lets out a massive upward slash that rips right through the beast's thick skin, making the tusked monster scream as the blade digs deep. He delivered one final slash that took the beast's head right off, silencing its scream as blood sprayed all over the forest floor. The beast finally hit the dirt, and a clear screen popped up right in front of him, letting him breathe a huge sigh of relief when he saw his XP had officially hit 3,225. He weighed his options, knowing those knights with Elysia were just posers who were easy to beat, but he still wasn't ready for real warriors, and he realized that spending 2, he decides to skip the level up for now because he spotted the Holy Sword of Vengeance, needing 3,000 XP to finally break the seal on the 8-eyed clear origin blade. A bright flash of light reveals a sick combat knife in his hand called the 8-eyed clear origin blade, which lets him scan anyone to see secret info that only this weapon can find. He checked out his fresh new blade and then messed with his wrist gadget, tapping and swiping to pull up a digital record. The screen showed a list of every goblin type, and he felt a huge wave of relief knowing all his data from his past life was still there. Once he confirmed it, he lifted his sword and a glowing screen popped up right in front of him. He pulled up his status screen to check his stats, making sure to keep his sword out so he was ready for a fight at any second. The screen flashed on with all his info, and his eyes locked onto one specific power, appraisal. After testing his powers, he headed for a nearby house, realizing his stats were totally broken for a level 1 because he kept all his titles from his past life. As he walks up, a girl with long brown hair calls him master and starts nagging him for leaving his bed, but he tells her he's totally fine and is debuff. He checked her stats and saw the debuff was totally gone, and since she's a beast man, she healed up way faster than any normal person would. As she walks off, he's left wondering if he just saw his status board, but Minarece turns back to explain it's actually a data board full of hidden stats you can only see with. She hands him a hot bowl of soup and a spoon, which totally trips him out since he knows he only bought forks. Minarece explains that she actually made the spoon herself to make eating easier, and he told her the spoon was super handy and asked if she made them back home. But Menarece looked down and said she had to redo it since her village sells these to survive the winter, and as a slate, she was just doing her duty. He takes a sip while she watches him nervously, and after a second, he looks her right in the eye and tells her it's amazing, calling her a total pro in the kitchen. She was stoked he liked the food, and after Kaido thanked her, she got curious about that weird greeting he used from his old world. That question really made him stop and think. Then Menarece asked him straight up if he ever planned on going back to his old world. He tells her not to sweat it, and Menarece just gives a little laugh. He tells her straight up that he's not leaving until he gets his revenge, and even if he found a way home, he'd stay right there, which makes Menarece look super relieved. He finally hits a dark realization. There's no turning back now, and he's way too broken to ever be fixed. Once things calm down, Minori starts clearing the table and says she'll handle the dishes, but Kaido just stays put and tells her they can worry about chores after they finally get their revenge. He stands up and grabs the bowl from her, telling her to forget the chores because they need to focus on the real problem, getting way stronger. He catches her look and asks if she's even listening, but Minori just flashes a huge grin and insists on doing the dishes herself. She flashes a massive, hyped-up grin and spells it out. "Master, I will clean them up myself." She handed him a bowl of food with a sweet smile, and Kaido totally blushed as he took it, both of them just vibing in the silence. He cleared his throat to get his act together, and when a totally chill Minori asked about the plan, he remembered to tell her they'd be super busy for the next 10 days. He crossed his arms and gave a chill, yup, declaring they were diving into a hidden dungeon to wipe out every single monster inside, leaving Minori totally shocked as she asked if he really meant all of them. Later that night, while they were chilling in their own beds, she finally agreed to go along with his crazy plan. He sat up with his drink and told her to get ready for bed, then finally worked up the nerve to drop the bombshell that he was a hero from another world, but she was already totally knocked out and snoring away. She wasn't resting easy at all, groaning in pain as a messed up memory flashed back and made her feel straight up sick to her stomach. Kiddo's head is spinning from the betrayal as he remembers Princess Elysia calling him a lab rat, the guildmaster saying he's bad for business, and even his buddy Jiren stabbing him in the back, making him scream out in total pain, wondering why his own team would ever do this to him. Being stabbed in the back by his own friends hurt like crazy. He bolted, wondering how his crew and the kingdom he fought for could just flip on him in a second. He just couldn't. Even through all that crazy pain, he kept pushing forward because of one promise. He told the Demon Lord he'd get her back home to her family. He made the promise, but then the horrible truth finally hit him. He remembered that summoning a hero takes a massive amount of mana, and there was no way for her to get home without. He's walking through the woods, but he can't stop replaying her final moments in his mind. She was so stubborn and wouldn't give up, even right at the very end. He finally catches his breath, absolutely fuming that he made it all this way just to be stuck outside the capital, when a sudden rustle in the bushes makes him snap and demand to know who's lurking there. Suddenly, a guy and a girl jump out of the bushes looking totally embarrassed, and while the guy stammers an apology for the scare, the girl recognizes him and asks if he's the same hero who saved them from the Wall Eater. She and her friend walk up to the hooded figure, and when the guy asks for help sneaking into the kingdom, Yuki Kaido recognizes them from the last fight and gives them a death stare, demanding. He chills out a bit and explains they just want to say thanks for saving their lives. The lady jumps in and tells him they've got it all covered, and Kaido is so shocked by their kindness that he realizes there are actually good people left in the world. So he agrees and tells them he's counting on them. The next day, the tavern is totally packed and buzzing with everyone sharing the latest rumors. While Taito is sitting by himself, he overhears some guys gossiping about the hero's dark past, confirming that he actually started the slum riot just to keep messing with the king. While he sips his drink, some jerk starts trash-talking the slum people, saying they should all be slaves. And Kaido is absolutely fuming that these lies follow him to every single country he visits. He's stuck thinking about how crazy his life has become, especially since he has to use the Amano-jaku's mirror sword to change his looks, and even his gender just to step. He stops dead in the rainy alley, his dark cloak whipping around as he realizes someone is right on his tail. He spins around to face the person chasing him and shouts through the pouring rain, demanding to know what they're after. The mysterious figure stays totally silent, and Kaido's face turns serious because he knows they're choosing to do this the hard way. Water splashes everywhere, and the fight is officially on. Two guys in cloaks step out of the rainy shadows, and one of them nervously asks if he's the hero they've been searching for. He blurs forward and pins a blade right against the guy's throat, asking in a scary, quiet voice how they found him and where they got their info. The other guy starts freaking out, screaming for Kaido to just chill out. They quickly explain they're messengers for the princess, sent to check out a rumor about a girl who looks just like the mom. He kept his sword steadied while the messenger begged for his life, swearing that Princess Elysia just wanted to keep her promise to send the hero back home, which is why she risked everything to send them. The messenger keeps talking, explaining that they only played along with the Saintess's lie to stay safe, and he swears the princess never actually agreed to it. Plus, since only the guy looked him dead in the eye one last time, promising that everything would be okay and that they totally had his back. He squinted, wondering if he could actually trust these guys. The messenger begged him to listen, arguing they never would have found him so fast without some real help. Another guy jumped in saying, after they finished talking, the messenger begged him to follow them to their secret hideout to meet the princess. But Kaido just stayed quiet, hiding his face under his hood while he figured out his neck. After a super awkward silence, he finally gave in. He just muttered fine and lowered his sword. The messenger let out a huge sigh of relief as Kaido told them to lead the way. The messenger nods and breaks down the plan right then and there. He says they can use a teleportation stone to zip straight to their secret hideout. Kaido can chill there while they set up the ritual to finally send him home. But the guy warns him to stay low because literally everyone is hunting for him right now. He marched through the pouring rain with two hooded guys on either side, and even though he wanted to thank the people who helped him, he knew it was safer to keep them out of this. While they're walking, he asks why they aren't heading to the palace, but the messenger tells him they're taking a secret shortcut straight to where they need to go. The crew stopped in a clearing as the guide shouted that they'd finally made it, and right in front of them was a plain wooden plank stuck in the mud. The messenger yanked up the rattling wooden board, revealing a creepy dark hole hidden underneath. The messenger girl turns back toward Kaido, her face peeking out as she warns the hero to watch his step. The guide led the way down the jagged stone stairs, using just one candle to light their path deep into the earth. Kaido followed right behind, pressing his gloved hands against the wet stone floor to steady himself before stepping into the secret tunnel. He pulls himself out of the tunnel and onto the stone floor, where a girl in a beautiful dress is waiting with a huge smile and open arms, calling him a brave hero and saying she's... Alicia keeps on smiling and asks if he's okay, and after Kaido says he's fine, she tells him she knew it was him the whole time because of that mirror sword power he mentioned, even if he looks totally different now. He lets out a quiet sigh of relief as sweat drips down his face, feeling so glad she didn't just jump him out of nowhere. Alicia holds out a glowing crystal and tells him she knows he's confused, but they're totally out of time, so he needs to grab this teleportation stone right now. He agrees to the deal, so she tells him he's got to move fast, promising to explain the hero ritual once he gets there. But suddenly a massive magic circle glows under his feet as she tightens her fist. Her sweet face suddenly turns into a nasty smirk as she lets out a cold laugh, touching her chin with a totally evil look in her eyes. Kaido's eyes go wide with fear as the princess starts floating in a creepy, dark aura, looking down at him and asking how he could be so totally stupid. He just stared up in total shock as Princess Alicia looked down at him with a freezing glare, her kind personality completely gone. Princess Alicia smirks down at Yuki and calls him a total moron, and Kaido's eyes go wide as a shiny blade comes crashing down on him at crazy speeds. He reacts in a split second, throwing up his dark blade to block the strike as their swords clash with a loud bang and send sparks flying everywhere. The force shoves him back, but he blocks every single strike with a loud clash of metal before sliding away to get some breathing room. He catches his breath for a second and looks around, crouching low with a look of pure panic as he realizes a whole squad of soldiers has their swords pointed right at him. He looks at his friends and starts to freak out, his voice shaking so much he can't even finish his question. The soldiers don't say a word, but Princess Alicia speaks up, sighing about how much she hates weaklings who think they're actually talented. Kaido spins around and asks. Her face twists into a look of pure disgust. She calls him a total freak for siding with an alien. Then, with a huge smirk, she says she's finally done pretending to be. She keeps roasting him, calling him a tough sewer rat and saying he's dead meat, especially since this room blocks all teleportation magic and her guards are blocking the only way out. With a smug smirk, she reveals she's known exactly where he was since the second he arrived, laughing about how he's such a total moron for letting those street thugs trick him so easily, leaving him completely frozen in shock as he remembers the villagers he saved and their promises to help him. But then Alicia reveals they actually sold him out for just a few gold coins, leaving him absolutely fuming with rage. He's absolutely fuming, cursing himself for being so easy to backstab. He can't believe he didn't suspect the villagers or those messengers, especially since they tracked him down and He snaps back to reality and demands to know why she's so obsessed with killing him, but Alicia just smirks and asks if he's trying to stall. She figures it doesn't matter and decides to play along for a bit, mentioning that he's actually been a pretty useful pawn for her. She explains that the hero who crushed the Demon Lord is actually a massive threat, because if he's not stopped, he could lead the angry citizens in a total revolt against the kingdom. He's completely stunned by her heartless logic. She explains that the people just need a way to blow off some steam. Then she reveals the same terrifying reason for her actions that made her face twists in total disgust as she finally reveals why she did it. She just can't stand the fact that he even exists. She's absolutely losing it, screaming about how gross it is that a monster like him would dare to look and talk just like her. And she tells him he's way more revolting than any demi-human or beast folk she's ever met. She gets right in his face and grabs his chin with a totally crazy look in her eyes, demanding to know if he has any clue how hard she had to fight the urge to puke just being around him. Her anger vanishes in a heartbeat, and she flashes a huge smile, saying it's all good since he's dying today anyway, so now she's finally sending him back to his own world, just like she promised. She starts glowing with a soft light. She swears she's telling the truth. He just stands there, totally shocked by how crazy things just got. To prove she's for real, she casts a massive spell called the Prayer's Vow, clasping her hands and betting both her arms that she'll tell the absolute truth about how the hero summoning and the reverse rituals work. The vow is done, and she calmly asks to talk, leaving Kaido totally shook with his head spinning. He can't figure out why she'd go to such extremes using a sacred vow. She corners him and asks if he can guess the final step for the ritual, and Kaido just grips his dagger and repeats her words in shock, because even though they have the magic circle, and seeing how lost he is, she starts mocking him and explains that humans can't just pull off god-tier magic on their own. So she breaks down the 4 steps. First, rip a hole. He keeps digging, asking what the other sacrifices are even for. She explains that mana is just the spark to get things started. To actually lure in a human, you need a real offer. She whispers the terrifying truth that 200 people were sacrificed at the ritual site, and the news hits Kaido so hard his eyes go wide with pure shock. As he stands there in total shock, she just smirks and asks him again, making sure he remembers they sacrificed 200 beast folk and slaves just to get that portal working. Her words hit him so hard he drops to his knees, shaking uncontrollably as she towers over him and keeps the pressure on. She demands he think about the dark price paid to build that portal, and that question sends him spiraling back to a normal day at school, laughing with 2 friends. But as the image of the building fills his mind, her voice echoes with one terrifying thought: who was sacrificed? He stared at her in total shock, muttering that there was no way this was real. But Alicia just gave him a calm smile and reminded him she literally can't lie. She threw her arms out wide, pointing out that they were both still in one piece, as if that weirdly proved she was telling the truth. She dropped the brutal truth that 200 people were sacrificed just to summon him, and the news hit him like a physical blow as he gritted his teeth in pure pain. His pain flipped into pure rage as he charged forward screaming, but a massive boot suddenly stomped down and blocked his path. Sharp vines burst from the ground and pinned him down, and even though he swore he'd kill her, Alicia just laughed until he stopped to demand who was sacrificed to open the portal between. Alicia gave a creepy smile and started explaining the truth. She said the space between worlds is basically a playground for gods, where any normal human would just die instantly. But crossing through that void, he finally realized how messed up the situation was and started screaming for her to shut up. But she just ignored him with a huge grin and got ready to show him exactly what she meant. He realized they were targeting his own family, and Kaido's heart totally dropped as the terrifying truth finally hit him. He's stuttering and can't believe his ears, looking at her with a tiny bit of hope that she's joking. Alicia just hangs upside down with a crazy smile and tells him. Hearing the truth completely destroys him. His face twists in a silent scream as he realizes she totally lied to him. She literally promised he could bring his family back. He starts going through Alicia just laughs like a total psycho at his misery, bragging that she's been waiting forever to see him look that broken. She starts trash-talking his dream of going home to his. Princess Alicia looks down at the chained-up Yuki and laughs at him for wanting to see his family again. before totally crushing his spirit by telling him they're already dead and his wish is just plain stupid. She keeps mocking him with a twisted smile, admitting she almost lost it laughing when he first mentioned his home, while Kaido just grits his teeth and begs her to stop. She mocks him by repeating his words about wanting to go home to his family, then asks what he thinks of her impression, while she totally loves seeing him look away in silence. Her face twists into a look of pure evil as she tells him he can go home. But then she makes a disgusting suggestion about opening a path back to his world by forcing himself on a beastman. She starts messing with his head by threatening to kill his future kids, calling them monsters from another world, and Kaido screams her name in pure terror as the barbed chains tighten around him. Sharp barbs sink into his skin, dropping him to his knees in total pain, and as he screams, the royal guards surround him with their swords while Lauren orders everyone to blast him with everything they... A massive energy blast slams into Kaido's chest, but he totally snaps, summoning a brand new sword to smack a guard aside while screaming at everyone to get out of his way. The guards are totally crushing him while Princess Alicia watches with a psycho smile, screaming for them to finish him off right now. They fired right away, and arrows slammed into his back, forcing him down to his knees as he let out a pained gasp. He's down on his knees when the princess starts roasting him, calling him a total idiot for falling for such a basic trick and laughing at how bad his senses are before she smirks. She told him that since he danced for her, his big reward was getting to be killed by her personally. He slammed his hands onto the freezing stone floor, shaking like crazy as he struggled to hold himself up. Kaido looked up, his voice shaking as he begged her one last time, promising her literally anything she wanted, even half of the entire world. That desperate offer hit him hard, bringing back a memory he totally regretted of a woman holding out a ring and begging him to stay. But since he turned her down, he wonders if this pain is... He's kicking himself over one big mistake, wishing he'd just snatched that tiny dark core from the very start. Right as he thinks that, Princess Alicia towers over him with her dagger raised, wearing a totally insane grin as she tells the monster from another world to just die. Right as her sword started to fall, he just snapped, lunging forward and snatching something from someone so fast the princess could only gasp in total shock. He snatched the demon core and it shot into the air, making the giant crystal prison on the floor smash into pieces and release all that trapped power. Huge flaming tiger guardians burst out of the wreckage with a crazy roar, and the guards started losing their minds. Alicia was totally stunned, but Kaido realized exactly what was happening. He used the total chaos to bolt, leaving Lauren completely stunned as she screamed that the hero was getting away. He moved like a total blur using his divine feet and skywalk powers, leaving Lauren completely stunned and shouting for him to stop because he was just way too fast. He books it out of there, leaving Princess Alicia and her guards to fight the revived monsters while she screams at her men to not let him get away. He looks back, sweating bullets because he knows if he takes even one step out of this room, there's no turning back, and the fear of dying is totally making him lose his nerve. Blood is dripping down his face as he swears to get his revenge, even if it means throwing his whole life away. Princess Alicia gets this nasty grin while squeezing the demon core, making it crystal clear that she's never going to forgive him. She screams a curse and smashes the core, letting a massive wave of energy explode as she blasts them with a firebird and lightning flower combo, telling her guards to spread the attack out. A magic blast slams into Kaido right at the door, and as he screams in pain, the princess yells that he's not going anywhere. Instead of hitting the ground, Kaido gets blasted by a blinding light as a teleportation circle glows under his feet and he starts to vanish. Alicia's smug grin instantly turns to pure shock and she starts losing it, screaming for him to wait as he disappears right in front of her. Everything turns into a blinding flash as the magic circle kicks in, ripping through space with a loud, sharp ring. The light gets crazy bright, sucking everything into one tiny spot right before it totally explodes. A hand reaches out from the blinding glow, punching into a brand new world as the light blasts through the thick forest trees. Kaido crashes onto the wet grass in the pouring rain, and as he struggles to get back up with exhausted eyes, he realizes his number one priority is to heal his wounds. He's slumped over in the pouring rain, checking his injuries. That's when he realizes something terrible. He's completely out of MP. He pushed himself way too far, and he struggles back to his feet and leans against a tree just to stay upright. That's when the brutal truth finally hits him. The people he trusted most were actually his enemies from the very start. He lets out a huge sigh and starts trudging forward, his boots sinking into the mud as he wanders off into the rainy woods with absolutely no idea where he's going. He's standing in the pouring rain with a painful, mocking smirk as this weird new feeling starts to hit him, and he has no idea what it is. He's totally lost, wondering what he's even supposed to do in this world, or if there's even a point to staying alive anymore. As he's standing there confused, a quick memory flashes back, the edge of a frilly dress and a soft voice whispering that they don't get it either. The memory finally snaps into focus, showing a girl with long dark hair who smiles and tells him to live his life so fully that he won't have a single regret when his time is up. Her words really hit him deep, and you can see his fire coming back as he grits his teeth and marches through the wet grass with a brand new goal. He looked back at how he felt just a second ago, realizing that even though he had no reason to live anymore, he just couldn't bring himself to die. Everything finally clicks as he pushes through the storm. She's the whole reason he even cares about this world. He can't just stop here. If he dies after giving up, he kept pushing forward through the pouring rain. He pressed his hand against a rough wooden wall to steady himself. This was the only thing keeping him going and making him move. Tears started streaming down his face as he moved, and he gripped his cloak tight, sobbing apologies over and over because he completely failed to keep his promise to Letitia.